Welcome into the MPW Digital Postgame Show presented by Dead Soxy. I'm Chase Parham, your tour guide tonight. Jeffrey Wright already in video in the picture with us here as Ole Miss knocks off Auburn 28-21 on the Plains. The Rebels overcoming a really sloppy first half to dominate the second half on the scoreboard and, frankly, on the stat sheet all night. So we'll get to Jeffrey in 1 second, but as always, Dead Soxy. You can use code, sorry, I guess I should speak in the microphone a little better. My apologies for that. Use code Rebel Grove, 25% off with Dead Soxy. Pick up all your different socks. They got the NIL collections. They got plenty of Ole Miss stuff. Plenty of different options there with you from Dead Soxy. This will be a podcast as soon as possible. All podcasts brought to you by Twisted Tea on the MPW Digital Network as well. So that's what's going on. Again, Ole Miss knocking off Auburn 28-21. No reason to continue on me blabbering. We'll get to some stuff. But Jeffrey, I'll let you know. Just let's get some main thoughts out of the way. I will tell everybody you kept the faith the entire time. There was never a moment where you had any doubt in the Rebels tonight.
It's cheap champagne, baby. It'll work.
Oh my gosh!
Let me grab a glass for everyone. I didn't even bother getting an actual pop top for Hugh. He's only worth a screw cap.
So, when did we buy the champagne or the prosecco or whatever it is we're imbibing there?
First off, this is nothing but the best. This is J. Roger champagne. I love how it says it is American champagne, which is actually not possible. Champagne only comes from the Champagne region in France, as every blowhard knows.
And now it's all over my floor.
And now it's all over Leah's floor, and she's very upset about it. But to which I say, worth it. Man, this is really bad. This is so bad.
Is it really bad champagne? Sorry,
disgusting.
Sparkling wine. Sorry, it's not champagne. Yes.
But no, that's the best part. On the label, it says it's champagne. It's actually not legal. If this were in Europe, they could actually be sued.
So what? How much was this bottle again? How much did we actually spend on a Hugh defeat?
So it's $8. Well, first off, I got $100 from Hugh. Which, by the way, shout out. He waved the white flag. He could have gone for 2, even after the offside. Like, I was panicked because I didn't buy the 6.5. I laid 6.5. I didn't buy the half point down. I just said, I was like, it's under 7. He could have, after the offside penalty on the last extra point, he could have gone for 2 from the 1.5, which is what the book would say to do. I went when it was after the Peyton Thorne threw the pick that got reviewed, and then Hugh called the challenge, which is the best. Like, that was the best. There's nothing better than Hugh just being mad about what happens, and so, like, he challenged. Like, challenging in college football is so stupid. They review every play. Like, you're never going to win.
They had told Hugh that they didn't see anything on review upstairs to overturn it, so they were letting it go.
Correct, and then he challenged anyway.
Stanton coming into the thing hot. Super chat. Appreciate you guys. Which players will Hugh Freeze blame tonight? What's the blame chart at, Jeffrey?
Well, my favorite part though is the least successful offensive package was the one that he was trying to take credit for, the Robbie Ashford package, which we also have to we got to set some ground rules. How many different times are you allowed during a season to retake play call? He did it against Georgia. I didn't know. Did he give it up last week against LSU? I guess that's what happened. When they only scored 14 points, they got beat 48-14. I guess he gave up play calling last week.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, didn't do it last week. You only score 18 on that LSU secondary. Because, look, I mean, Auburn came into this thing averaging 100 yards passing per game, and I think they had 26 at the end of the third quarter. I mean, they are horrid through the air. Absolutely horrid.
Well, I mean, They finished with 122, and I don't know how much came on that last drive. That last drive was 67 yards. I don't know how much was passing it. It felt like it was all passing. So they had, I don't know, 75 yards entering the last possession?
Yeah, something like that. They've got so Auburn's 3-4, and we'll get to Ole Miss in a second. We're just kind of talking, but Auburn's now 3-4. They get State, Arkansas,
Vanderbilt.
Oh no,
Vanderbilt, right. New Mexico State. I think it's like State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, New Mexico State. It's in. I may have the last two backwards because I was thinking he's got to go to Arkansas in November. That kind of felt like that spot where Ole Miss had to go to Arkansas last year. And if they're fighting to get back for bowl eligibility, I don't know. That's the other thing about them, man. Like, they're not good, dude.
No, they're really, really bad. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we'll get up too as this thing goes on. Is just kind of how far they have to go. Tyler, thanks for super chat. He says I sent JG a super chat to troll, so I'll return the favor. I'd troll to pay somebody, but I do appreciate it over here. Jay Young 8921. Do you think Freeze came up with a little limp tonight? Maybe needs a little more rubbing. We're going there tonight. Meant to take this as a $69 super chat. But YouTube defeated me. Appreciate you. Appreciate that a lot.
I also ordered Asian tonight.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
The full experience. Navarro,
yeah,
appreciate you. Says Hugh looked rough at the end of the game during the handshake. Yeah, did you notice that? He wouldn't look at Lane. He walked up and kept his eyes straight forward and whatever. Lane kind of turned toward him and he there was no eye contact at all. He never looked his way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, I think he waved the white flag. Even didn't you think the onside kick was weird? If you're gonna onside kick it, it was almost like he gave up. It was super weird. That the straight down the middle onside kick is the least effective if they have the hands team out there.
So as Ole Miss fans, I called it a root canal earlier in the week, and I thought it was because of just everybody's about history. I mean, even Lane on Monday says, hey, 71 years since back-to-back wins, all blah, 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 blah. Ole Miss was 0-9 in 9 games at Jordan-Hare. And then they completely do everything imaginable to screw up this game in the first half. They muff a punt. They've got 7 penalties. They have 1 third down conversion. They've got 2 turnovers. They missed the pass that, if Dart throws that pass correctly, it's well on its way to 17-0 or 21, and they're just blowing them out at that point.
Yeah,
I guess
because he was wide open. It wasn't like he threw into coverage. It was just it was man-to-man bad throw, and the ball got tipped.
Yeah, you've got the 53-yard run, which is the only way Auburn scores. I mean, Auburn scored 2 touchdowns in essentially regulation that was outside prevent, and it was a 24-yard short field and a 53-yard touchdown run. They cannot drive. It's 14-14 at the half. What are you kind of thinking at that point?
You can attest to this. I actually thought they were fine because they played clearly the worst half of football they could possibly play. I mean, a minute. You have turnovers. You have a possession where you don't even get a chip shot field goal out of it. Although I guess you can make the argument they were better off kind of having that embarrassing play than they were just straight up missing it because Auburn got backed up, and you can tell when they get backed up, they could do nothing. But I just didn't really think Ole Miss was going to play that poorly in the second half, and they didn't play great in the second half, but they cleaned up the penalties because I think they only had 3 penalties in the second half versus 7 in the first half.
That's correct.
They were able to protect enough. The first time I actually got a little worried was when Pettis got hurt. I was a little curious of how are they going to shuffle the line, because the one thing that I do give Auburn credit for, I think that front's pretty good. They get after guys, and I didn't think their back end was all that good, and I think that's why Ole Miss at times was able to hit some plays. And it really came down to it with Ole Miss playing as poorly as they did offensively. That was going to be a game of which team hit more shot plays, and it was very obvious who you would rather bet on to hit more shot plays, and it was Ole Miss by a mile.
Well, I mean, frankly, when Ole Miss bogged down, it's because they didn't do anything down the field. I mean, I don't know what all the coverages were and different things because they schemed well, as they always do early in the game. I mean, you pointed it out there on that first drive of the touchdown. They had a lot of creativity. They did a lot of stuff, and then they completely got away from it. They didn't get Harris down the field. They didn't get some matchup stuff, and they were sort of running over and over and over and over. And like Judkins had a big game. I think he went for 124. Bentley added some nice burst at times. I think Dart barely got over 200 passing, but Trey Harris got 102 of that himself. Yeah, if there was a moment, it was when that Auburn front seven was eating a little bit. Ole Miss didn't get anything downfield, and you thought, okay, the problem here is the clock just continues to get short, and then one play can do something. But then, frankly, as soon as Ole Miss even flipped the field position, I thought, okay, that's kind of that. Because there for a while, the way for Auburn to win that game was that, Fraser Messine kept messing up from a punting standpoint. They couldn't seem to get anything flipped from a possession standpoint. And then once that got fixed, that was kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the concern in the second half was like you felt like the entire time you were completely behind field position-wise. Because like you felt like you were just back inside, your own 10, and if you didn't get a big play on first down, it was like you were punting it right back to them. But I really think you got to give, this is kind of where I give the defense credit in the sense that everyone has stopped that offense, but the defense was put in a ton of really bad spots. And I thought for the most part, particularly in the second half, like when Ole Miss decides to punt, they get the penalty, then they decide to go for it. They come up a yard short. Like, that was a big moment. And I felt like every time Auburn had a chance with the ball to really flip the script and put Ole Miss on its heels, I thought the defense really stood up and made plays.
So, the defense made a ton of plays. I mean, again, they didn't give up a full field touchdown the entire night. There was nothing where anybody drove. They didn't. I mean, Auburn had one way to win the game, and they never did that. So the defense played incredibly well. They got a lot of tackles for loss, all that stuff. It's the team, though, in general. I wrote about this kind of at the end of what I said in the column. It's up at rebelgrub.com. I think Neil has something. Brian's finishing up something as well. So a lot of written content for you guys once this thing is over. But that's another game where the score is very much in doubt at the end of the third quarter, into the second half, and they're just finding a lot of ways to win games. I mean, you look back through almost every win this season outside of Mercer, Tulane was one possession with like 3 minutes to go. Georgia Tech was close at halftime. Ole Miss dominated the second half. Arkansas had the ball to go tie or whatever, or win or whatever that was. LSU obviously came down to the last play. So many things here, and so many Ole Miss teams in the past where whether it be at Auburn or in general, they find ways to complicate things. Instead, this team is really dominating late third into the fourth quarter. I think having two running backs helped with Bentley and Judkins and the way they're able to kind of manage ball possession a little bit. But, for a team that's so built on the transfer portal, and I know we say some version of this most weeks, it is a credit to them that they have a lot of resilience and a lot of ability to kind of overcome some adversity and play together. You're just not seeing that around the country. I mean, you look everywhere, and it's a complete season in college football with survive and advance. Just win the game however the hell you got to win it and move on to the next week because everything's dumb and weird, and you just look at records. I mean, look at tonight. Tony Elliott in Virginia knock off Drake May in North Carolina. I know North Carolina was not going to go undefeated, but they weren't going to lose to Virginia most likely.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a Mac Brown. Yeah, that was a Mac Brown special.
Point being, it's a team that frankly just wins football games.
No, the thing that is interesting is how much different the attitude of the team is than the fan base. Because if you think back in all those scenarios that you're mentioning, like everyone's group chat is blowing up. Like, I've seen this before. And granted, the kids don't have the history that everyone else that's watching the game and has seen Ole Miss go down there and it be a house of horrors. But the team just never reacts that way. And you kind of got the sense that in the second half, if Ole Miss could get the lead, you kind of got the sense that they would be able to put the game away. They get the lead, they get the stop, they go right down, they get the next touchdown, and then it was night-night. And, I'm sure a lot of people out there would have liked to have seen them make that fourth down stop before the touchdown drive and make it a 35-14 game. You got to spend most of the fourth quarter not really panicked. And I think you're right. It's almost like this team has figured out whatever it's got to do to make a win or to get the win, they're willing to do it, or they're able to make it happen. Like against LSU, they go down 9. They've got to get a stop. They get the stop. They got to get a score. Well, then they got to get another stop. They get the stop, and then they got to get another score, and they do. And, it was nerve-wracking at the end, but they make the last play. Tonight was about how were you going to execute in the second half. And I thought they deserve really high marks because I thought they cleaned up the dumb stuff that was killing him in the first half. Like, I do think there was probably a chance to run them out of the building early. I'm also not sure that I think this is just a really good football team, but I don't know if this is like a great football team. Like, I don't know how many teams they are going to run out of the building. I just don't. I good players and they have an identity, kind of know what they are, but I don't know if they can just line up and run someone out of the building on the road unless that team kind of helps. Like all had to have turned it over like Ole Miss did in the first. I suppose you can make the argument if Jackson doesn't throw the pick in the first half, they were on pace to run him out of the building. But man, you could see just as soon as Ole Miss got up 2 scores in the second half, that place just cleared out. And I think had the roles been reversed, if Auburn would have gotten up 2 scores, I'm not sure this Ole Miss team just lays down and dies. Now, there's also a problem that Auburn has is I think Auburn knows they get down 2 scores. It's night-night. Like they just can't do anything about it if they get down 2 scores.
I was curious what the potential Twitter situation would look like. Ole Miss football had their.
Did you see the Auburn ready. Response or whatever? Or, yeah.
The quote tweet of the final.
If you're
score.
Auburn, why are you? Well, no. Did you see it? Auburn did Coach Freeze and a fan during the Hugh Freeze handshake.
Yeah.
And then Ole Miss's Twitter account, I guess, did Coach Freeze and the man that won.
Yeah, they did that, and then they took the Auburn final score graphic where there was no comment. Auburn just put up the 28-21 final. And quote tweeted it with a ready-to-go GIF or whatever you want to call it, like a 13-second video that says weather alert. It's getting chilly on the plains, and then has a few old tweets and whatnot in it, as well as some other clips. So they had that ready to go here. It's going through. It's one game, but...
Should Hugh have won it?
Yeah.
Hold on, serious question.
Yep.
Should Hugh have wanted the job as badly as he did?
No, it was ego. 100%. He wanted a job back in the SEC to get back in the spotlight and to get out of Liberty. And Auburn was the location that did that. He would have taken almost any SEC job or maybe any SEC job there at some point. There's no doubt. Because... if you're just talking about quality of life, Auburn, while it's a good fit if he wins like crazy, because that's what's interesting about this. We talked about this all last week, but it even more is true here as you watch this play out with what they did in the stands and everywhere else and what this looked like from an environment standpoint, is that sure, he goes to Liberty, and he's making $3 million a year or whatever it is. He's in one of the best group of 5 jobs in the country. They've got all kind of money. He can recruit. He's got some cachet. He can go grab some 4-stars. He can go grab some quarterbacks. He can out-recruit most of those schools, out-coach most of those schools, all that stuff. Yet he couldn't get over the ego to be back here doing this. And yes, while they win, he'll go to all the pancake breakfast and all the church stuff and all that stuff. And all that makes sense as far as how he fits in at Auburn. However, he does not handle media criticism well. He doesn't handle getting off the mat when stuff like this happens. And this fan base is crazy. They are nut jobs as far as what expectations are to reality. And it is a horrible fit at that point for him at this place because they simply are never going to mesh. We're talking about 7 games into this thing. He has no talent. It's not his fault. And yet people are already turning on him because of the way he's handling it. The expectation does not fit Hugh Freeze's reality.
Here's the problem, in my opinion. I don't think, whether or not it's fair, Auburn has championship aspirations. And again, we can debate whether or not that's real. That's how they view their program, and that is their standard. I do not think Hugh Freeze is a championship coach. At his best, I think Hugh is exactly what we've seen. There's going to be big wins, and there's going to be bad losses. When it's at its best, it's like 9-3, 10-2. The reality is how's he any different than Gus Malzahn? Except I think Gus's teams are a little bit more consistent.
Well, do we know yet?
Yeah, I mean, let's pay attention to the old. He beat Alabama. He beat Alabama with Blake Sims, who they moved to safety at quarterback, and then he beat him on a night where Alabama turned it over 5 times because they started Cooper Bateman and they went back to Jake Kurt. Let's not act like he was beating Tua Tagovailoa and 4 first round, receivers. Yeah, they won the games, but this idea that he's gonna compete with in this Super Nova era, I just don't see it. And I think the bigger question is, can Auburn compete at the level that is expected of him? And I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think Auburn can get the type of talent to compete anywhere near the level that they expect. I'm just not convinced in this new reality that they're there yet.
Charles, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you. I missed a few of them. Let me go back real quick and grab that. We're going to try to go ahead and get Neil on here, see if we can get all 3 of us to talk for a few minutes. Any chance Lane tweets out a Bible verse tomorrow? My guess is Lane moves on from this week. I don't expect a lot of stomping on.
Well, this is another thing I also wanted to say about this.
Talk for a second while I'm trying to get Neil on. Go ahead.
It's totally fine for him to do this year, where he clearly made this game a Super Bowl. When he admits that they practiced yesterday full out, that's fine in year 1. But the Auburn fan base doesn't expect you to be worried about beating Ole Miss. And if you're going to make that game your Super Bowl, you are setting yourself up for failure. And I'm just not convinced that he is capable of – I think in his warped mind, his delusional warped mind, he really believes that he was done wrong at Ole Miss. And if he starts making Ole Miss the standard rather than LSU, Alabama, Georgia, good luck, buddy.
Neil, I think we can hear you if you want to go ahead and try to talk.
Jeffrey just nailed it. 100 and gazillion%. If he makes Ole Miss the standard there, he won't last long. I don't think he's going to last long anyway, but he won't last long at all there. You've got to his standard there is Alabama and Georgia, and he's nowhere close. He's nowhere close. Look, I saw 2 of the most anemic offenses in the history of modern football today, and Auburn's not much better. I mean, he got a long way to go to catch up with the standard that they're going to hold him to. And like you said, Chase, they're going to hold him to the standard there, fair or not. And I think it's silly, but the standard there is compete for national championships, and they're so freaking far from that it's incredible. Clearly Montgomery ran the offense tonight because they were rotating quarterbacks and all that stuff. I mean, obviously wasn't Hugh's fault, but I mean,
no, Neil, you didn't hear it halftime. You didn't hear it halftime. He called the plays. The plays were there to be made, but it was on the quarterbacks. They didn't see it right.
Oh, you're right. I missed halftime. I hopped in the shower at halftime.
You missed it.
I missed that interview. I can only imagine. I can only imagine how compelling that interview was when he broke down why it wasn't working.
Real quick, we're going to continue our Hugh conversation, but did you go to that abomination today, Neil?
Yeah, I was there.
How long did we stay at 7-3 Mississippi State?
Carolina and I stayed until the end.
You stayed until the end?
We stayed until the very end. We watched the last Hail Mary.
There is a point in which if you don't leave early enough, you do have at that point, like you are so committed, you're like, you got to see it through. Like if you don't leave at the half or whatever, like you might as well. Like what else are you gonna do? It was early enough.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. Is like, I mean, she can't. We talked about going to Dixon, but she's concerned about getting an MIP because she's not legal yet. And I was like, we'll just stay here. And she's like, yeah, we're here this long. Let's just see what happens. And I was like, I think that's a good philosophy. And we stuck it out. I mean, this is not the show for that, but I have lots of thoughts about attending college football games in person after that. I mean, they got to do something about these TV timeouts. But anyway, yeah, that was offense was set back a long way today. But guys, Auburn's offense isn't much better than the two offenses I watched in person in Reynolds Razorback this afternoon. Let's be clear. A little better. It's a little better, but it's not much better.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a lot better. I think they got lucky today. I think they got the one explosive run play from Hunter, and then when Jackson made the bad throw, they got a 24-yard field, and they really, honestly, they got an explosive run on that. So like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm giving Auburn credit for being a little better, Jeffrey, but not much, not a whole lot. I mean, there's not a hell of a lot of difference between what Auburn ran at quarterback today and Mike Wright. There's not much difference.
I think I'd rather have Mike Wright.
Yeah,
you could
sell me on. I'd rather have Wright. He's a willing runner. He's a good runner.
Correct.
Did you think it was even in doubt at halftime, Neil?
No. I thought Ole Miss was going to win the whole way. It was pretty obvious. They just had to stop shooting themselves in the feet and had to put a drive together. And it was clear that Auburn wasn't going to score much conventionally. And so as long as Ole Miss didn't just slit its own throat, they were going to be fine.
All right, I want to ask the two of it, all three of us.
Sure.
I think this is how we're gonna ask this question every single week.
Okay.
Are they good?
Yeah, because in college football today, you simply find ways to win football.
Is Ole Miss good?
That's it. They don't have some crazy glaring flaw, and they do enough well. And they're pretty good mentally. Yeah, 100%. They're good.
Yeah, they're. I wrote this tonight. I think Chase kind of wrote the same thing. I haven't had a chance to read his column, but I think they're just kind of resilient. I think they have a toughness about them. They don't panic. They're far more mature this year than they were a year ago. Look, all jokes aside about Auburn, Jordan-Hare is loud. It is a really loud place. I mean, it's louder than it gets credit for, and it can be disruptive, and it can mess with your communication, and it can get in your head. And I have seen teams get rattled there. And at 14-14, Ole Miss probably thought, what are we doing? But to come out and just get it done in the second half, I thought that's 3 games in a row now that, LSU, Arkansas, and now Auburn, where they just, it feels like a bad joke on this week, but they just kind of found different ways to win the games.
6-1.
No, where I think they deserve credit is like in the game where they got beat. Like, they got physically beat. In every other game, like if they were going to lose the game, you were going to have to go and beat them. Like Alabama beat them. But every game, like they have kept themselves in the game, and really when it's come down to like a battle of who makes more plays that decide the game, they have made consistently every game more plays that decide the game, and they've made fewer critical mistakes, I think, than who they played.
What's your over-under on how long Hugh is there?
2.5.
Oh. You would go under 3 full seasons.
boys, this year ain't over.
Okay, in what way though?
Because Jeffrey's right, Chase. There's these games that people are going to go, that's a win, that's a win, that's a win. Those are not automatic wins.
Well, I mean, look, State Auburn is going to set football back.
But still got Arkansas.
Have a hard time scoring against State. They're gonna have a hard time scoring against State next week. State's defense is okay. Their State's back end of their defense is pretty good. They've got a pretty good scheme. I just saw it in person today. I had good seats. I saw them. They're the back end of their scheme is pretty good. Auburn's not going to be able to throw the ball on State very effectively, in my opinion. State's able to generate some pass rush. They're okay up front. Now, look, offensively, they're terrible, but so is Auburn. That's not a gimme Saturday.
Well, I would also make this point. How many times can you do the I'm going to get these guys up? Like, he used the I'm going to get them up tonight. And he got them up for Ole Miss, and it was a loss.
He did the deal of we don't practice on Friday, but we practiced on this Friday. This was a big game to him. They didn't answer the bell. And so now, a week later, what's he going to do? Hey, this Mississippi State game's a really big game for him. What's he going to do? I mean, you're going to keep selling that? These kids came to Auburn. I covered Auburn. I'm just telling you, you can't tell the Auburn kids, hey, this Ole Miss game is a big game. And now this Mississippi State game is a big game. And then down the road, this Alabama game is a big game. No, it doesn't work. I mean, at some point at Auburn, you're supposed to just out-talent Ole Miss. Out-talent Mississippi State. That's not going to happen for him. Look, I mean, you're going to laugh at me when I say this, and I think they'll win the game, but that game at Vanderbilt for them.
No, I was wondering if you were going to go there. No, I was going to say he hasn't had his losses this year were A&M on the road. He was an underdog. Georgia at home. He was an underdog. LSU on the road. He was an underdog. Ole Miss at home. He was an underdog. He has not had his standard lose outright as a favorite game. And you always get at least one every single year where he loses as a favorite.
Oh, it's coming.
Vanderbilt, though?
It's coming.
They can throw a little bit. Ever since they've gone back to Swan. Hey, they scored more points on Georgia than Auburn did.
And that's also the other thing here is that, I mean, I know we're doing the hard place to play thing. But, I mean, it took Georgia 4 quarters to pull away from this team. Like, just getting the hell out of there with a win, no matter what, you just move on. Like, hell, it's.
Ole Miss and Georgia just basically played the same game against Auburn.
Yeah.
I think Georgia won 27-20, and Ole Miss won 28-21. I mean, I picked 31-21, and I'm going to give myself that missed field goal. So I was right, 31-21.
Yeah, I had 30-20. I was right there with you.
Yeah. I mean, this game kind of went like we expected. I mean, the other thing is this team really going to rally around playing for the Birmingham Bowl?
I guess that's my question, though. And that's what I guess I'm asking Neil when I say this. This team was always, somebody said it in the live chat, and they're exactly right. I don't forget who it was because you guys are chatting a lot, so it's moving down a lot. But they were always going to go 5-7, 6-6, 7-5. Like, this team was never going to be better than that at all. What tangible thing does that do to this team? I mean, are they, it doesn't necessarily affect recruiting in some negative way. I mean, what does it do program-wise when they just simply do what the hell everybody outside of the Auburn nut jobs thought they were going to do?
But the problem is that's their fan base, Chase. It doesn't matter that Vegas said this was a 5-win team. It doesn't matter that we all knew this was a 5-win team. Like, that's the thing about cults. Not everyone acts reasonably. Like, the standard is the standard.
Let the record show Jeffrey called them a cult tonight. I didn't, although it is a cult.
No, Neil only said, well, hold on a minute, because it actually got a couple message board threads. What was Neil's exact phrase the other day? A prayer circle jerk? Was that the phrase that continued to?
I mean, for the record, again, pray all you want. I'm pro prayer. But if you announce in the press box what time the prayer is going to be so that everyone can take a picture of the prayer and send out the tweet that shows out how superior you are because you pray publicly, the power of said prayer is diminished, at least in my eyes. So
Jeffrey, you went to a religious institution. Pepperdine didn't do that, did they, in anything?
100% no.
Okay.
No, the only thing is we had to go to – and by the way, I went to a cult myself. The Church of Christ is a cult. Literally, they ask you, are you of the faith? Not, are you a Christian? Like,
we're so getting flagged on this show tonight. YouTube is going, like, we're done.
I've told you guys at Ruston High School, at the end of every road trip at Ruston High School, before we got off the bus to get into the field house to unload our stuff and get our stuff to leave, we sang the alma mater and said the Lord's Prayer. I never saw a camera in there. We just did it. It was our thing. We did it. Offense did it on its bus. The defense did it on our bus. He said the Lord's Prayer and sang the alma mater and got off the bus and went on our thing.
Guys, he outdid himself tonight. When Joe Tessitore, when they had that cutaway of him, the daughter, and the granddaughter, look who showed up just before we showed up for the production meeting. Oh, what an unbelievable coincidence.
Amazing.
Can't believe it.
That wasn't planned at all.
No, look who was there. But in fairness, Neil, that was probably on the prayer schedule too. Like, you know.
It probably was.
So Vanderbilt State, Arkansas. What is Auburn's record in those 3 games?
I'll say 2-1.
Okay.
2-1.
2-1.
I
bet
will
it's
say
not
this.
3-0.
Because they might not have 25 total yards against Alabama.
I think it's more
they're
likely.
not beating Alabama.
I think it's more likely they go 1-2 in those 3 games than 3-0. I think the most likely outcome 2-1.
Utah
Chase,
back up on USC. Go ahead.
Chase, forget the uniforms, the atmosphere, everything. If you're just watching that team, what do they do well?
They're pretty good on their front 4 to 7. And like in a vacuum, they're good running the football, but when you can't throw it at all, you're no longer good running the football. I mean, just
because
pile everybody in there and deal with it. Like,
they're so one-dimensional that, and at a certain point, by the way, if you've ever, I mean, think about how many times we covered, like, you know, those Orgeron teams that you covered that actually had a pretty good defense. When your offense is so anemic, when you get into the second half of the schedule, defense has had to keep you and carry you in every game. Eventually, they just start breaking.
We have not discussed that Hugh's double pass went for -8 yards, by the way. We did get the double pass, and it went for -8.
He could, no. First off, no, that was a Montgomery call.
Okay, sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that was a Montgomery call. I mean, that's the best part. Everything he dialed up tonight didn't work.
I'm just curious. I mean, it's a good point in the stream, real quick, Jeffrey. What percentage of Pepperdine was like you, not devout Church of Christ? But like, what is the split there with the Waves?
Probably 50-50.
Okay, just curious.
I mean, you probably have, I think it's 50. So you have, I would say probably 40% of the Church of Christ kids are like truly devout Church of Christ kids. Then you have some kids that were Church of Christ to get the scholarship money. I would say that's probably another 10% of the student body. And then, because that international fee is a lot higher, we had a lot of international kids. I mean, yeah, I'd say it was probably 50-50. You always knew the Church of Christ kids, though, because if you met someone that was truly breathtakingly stupid, you go, Church of Christ? How'd you know? I just did.
Dead Soxy, good to see you in the stream. Rebel Grove, again, 25% off there. If you need to pick up some socks. If you need to show off the sock wear to any Auburn fans in your life, whoever you got coming up this week. So good to see you in the stream. Appreciate you guys as always. Ole Miss gets Vanderbilt next week. They're going to beat Vanderbilt, and then A&M in 2 weeks. Early on, what's the Aggie and Rebel line? What are we looking at?
I think Ole Miss 3.5 probably, right?
Because I'm going to be honest, I'm going to have a hard time talking about Vanderbilt for 5 days.
I think it's Ole Miss minus 6.5.
I'll tell you right now, it's 6.5. If it's that many, I'll take the points. Because the thing is, A&M still power rates really well because that front's really good, and Ole Miss is still going to have problems blocking them. I don't know, man. I don't know. Now that Neil says it, like, if I post 3.5, aren't you taking Ole Miss?
Yes.
It's probably right.
Because Texas A&M
have
Texas A&M's the opposite of Ole Miss. They found ways to lose.
Let's see.
It's who they are as a program, and nobody's been able to fix it.
Utah just
A&M next week.
USC.
A&M next week has South Carolina at home, so that'll probably be a win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'll probably be. I'm glad we're also done with USC. Aaliyah was asking me today, like, who's the one team that, like, when inevitably they disappoint, that it makes you the happiest? Because hers was Texas, and I was like, when USC starts thinking that they're good again, it is the best for me. Just watching them having to come to grips with, like, yeah, they're a little better than they used to be, but they have Caleb Williams, and they're still going to probably lose because I don't think this is their last loss of the year.
What's the Vanderbilt line?
Whatever it is, I'm going to take the Commodores because there's no way Ole Miss is going to be up for that game after this and before A&M in 2 weeks.
So if
it is going to be a sleepy, no doubt win.
I'll say so. Georgia was 31.5 on the road. Although right now Vanderbilt Stadium probably is a 0 on the road. Like if you were factoring in home road, I bet it's probably 24.5, something like that.
Yeah, that feels like too many given the place on the schedule for me. Clemson and Miami in overtime right now. Clemson up 20-17. Miami lining up for a 35-yard field goal.
What was the line in picks? I've got 3 right now, so I can't decide if I want to miss and just push because I've had a good day. But I feel like the line in picks was like 3.5.
I don't remember. That's a Neil question.
I don't remember.
What have you had today, Neil? What is our input at this point?
Hey Neil, do you want me to pour you a bottle of champagne for Hugh?
Yeah.
Please. I got to Caroline's apartment like at 9:30.
Hold on a minute. Neil, hold on, and then I'll let you finish that. Jeffrey, are you actually drinking that crap?
Listen, for him, I will.
Okay. I couldn't decide if you'd go like full on like a bottle of Veuve or like Moët or like something actually drinkable, or if it was just going to be horse piss.
Because even I don't like good champagne. Okay. Like I was going strictly for comedic effect, and a bottle of J. Roget American champagne did not disappoint.
Okay.
Let me tell you what. If you let it open up, it's just as bad as it was right when you opened it at the beginning. Like you don't even need to you can just pour that bad boy right away. It is what it is. This is meant to be had with orange juice.
All
right, sorry. Go ahead, Neil. My bad.
So I got to Caroline's place at like 9:35, 9:40. I had a couple of beers there, and then we walked to the stadium from her place, and I guess I had a couple there, and then when we got back, we went to the Kyle house for a little while. I met a bunch of her friends and all that stuff, and then we went back to her place, and there was more beer there, and then we went to dinner, and yeah, I'm good though.
Did you switch to cocktails at dinner?
There was some. I had one cocktail at dinner.
Okay, wine.
No, I've had a couple beers since I got back.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good point, Jeffrey. You probably are like really on the verge of a hangover if you have too much more of that. That is, as they said in the great American film Cocktail, that's perfume going in and sewage coming out.
Yeah, but worth it. Like that's
okay.
kind of like that's your entire existence. It's a metaphor for your entire existence of Hugh Freeze. You know, you have to deal with so much.
Very true.
And then afterwards, you're just like, I just want to sweat this out and be done with this.
All right, so you've got a kid.
Because I want to go back to your point that, like, when you're saying that, I think Neil was so spot on. The thing that Chase is not when I set the over under at 2.5, I feel like what Chase is not accounting for is that's not who that wanted. I have Auburn friends, and Neil was 100% right when he said Auburn got set up with Hugh because all their friends were like, "You're gonna love this guy." Hugh's act's gonna wear really thin. And he's not a grinder. He's a front runner. Because so much of the success at Ole Miss is predicated on two things. Number one, as we all do, we give him credit for the coaching job he did in 2012. But that was also predicated on Auburn becoming a dumpster fire the last year at Chiswick and Arkansas becoming a dumpster fire when Petrino had his motorcycle wreck. Also, if Denzel's not there, does that thing get off the tracks? Like, he doesn't have the built-in advantages right now at Auburn that he did, and I give him credit. He parlayed those things into what he needed to have for success. But he does not have those built-in advantages right now.
He treated this game like he did today. I mean, like Neil said, it's a great point. Hey, now we coached on Fridays. We had the big practice. We're doing this. We've got to get this thing right now. He loses to Alabama and Georgia this year. He loses to Alabama and Georgia next year. And then here this might be the kicker that really puts it in there because of the comparisons that just will not die for all the reasons. Ole Miss makes the playoff next year. And it's like the 11 seed. And Auburn is 7-5 or 8-4 or whatever the hell they are, but they missed the playoffs. And you look up and you go, "Hey, you're behind Alabama, and you're behind." You know, I get there's no divisions, but you know what I mean. You're behind this team and this team and this team, and then whether it be Ole Miss or whatever, you've got the situation. Like it's all that stuff. It's a mushroom cloud because of what expectations are and who you're being compared to and who you've fallen behind. And that 12-team playoff is only going to magnify it when one or two teams make it that they deem themselves to be a superior being to.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be Ole Miss. It can be, what if Florida gets it rolling next year? What if A&M ends up making a coaching change and whoever comes in there injects some life into them? What if LSU makes the playoff next year? Like, I mean, all it takes is a little bit of watching, and that's the other thing. It didn't take Lane very long. And we can do the whole, yeah, he had some advantages. But the reality is, if you're sitting there and you're pissed off as a college football fan, and you're sitting there going, well, Ole Miss went 10-2 in the second year of their coach. They're freaking Auburn, and we can't do that, and we're sitting here at 7-5. It's the same reason Brian Harsin got fired.
Yes, Michigan State was where apparently Hitler was on the video board today. That appeared to be a correct thing.
They apologized. It's okay.
I mean,
as long as you apologize, it's okay. I I mean, if you compare
no.
to Hitler, as long as you
didn't the Times rehire a Palestinian correspondent that praised Hitler?
I haven't seen this. I don't know.
Yeah, look up. It's I don't know if maybe it's the Post, but there's another one that rehired. There's like they brought him back. It's unbelievable.
Do you know how far down the trivia question road you have to get, and how many you've got to run out of before you go? You know what, guys? Where is Hitler from? That's tonight's pregame trivia question. That's where we go. Hey, can y'all grab the best shot of him and Photoshop that and have it ready to go up on the board? I mean,
Austria.
Well, yeah, correct. Good job, Jeffrey. You win. Because that's the point.
Listen, there's very few people out there other than like actual historians that will beat me on World War II trivia. Okay. I mean, I'm so locked in on World War II that I've gone to the prequel era. Like, I'm in on World War I heavy now. Like, I want to see how World War II really got going. Give me some World War
I. Let's see. Parting shots, Jeffrey. You got a kid that's going to wake up in like an hour. Like, what's your closing statement here on a night that you've been waiting on for a while because you've expected Ole Miss to win this game the entire season?
Hugh, you don't like me and I don't like you. Please take this one piece of advice from me because I know you're listening. Don't focus on Ole Miss. Don't focus on Ole Miss.
Is there any shot of that happening?
Nope. He is what he is, man.
I think you're probably right.
He is exactly what he is.
Last thing, are you going to take Vanderbilt or Ole Miss next week?
Am I doing what?
Are you taking Vanderbilt or Ole Miss on the line next week?
Well, do we know the number? I mean, I'm like you. I'm probably
whatever
the number
18, 20, 22. Who gives a shit? Like, same difference.
If it's under 20, I might take Ole Miss because last year they were able to take advantage of that back end. Okay. Sometimes you need a set game.
All right. Fair enough. Appreciate it, bud.
All right. Be good.
Jeffrey Wright joining us there. See if we can get Brian for a minute, and then I'll chat. What time are you leaving tomorrow? Like, what's your situation? Are you like on the road all morning or what? I mean, are you getting up at 6? Like, what's the deal?
No. I'll just wake up when I wake up and probably hit the road within the hour. I've done half of 10 thoughts. I got to do the other half when I get to Oxford.
Did we write the exact same column?
I haven't read yours yet, but it was probably pretty close.
That was probably some error. Honestly, I didn't know you were writing, and it kind of just went a little sideways there. So
it's okay. It's all right. It doesn't matter. We didn't. If we thought the same thing, that says that maybe we were both right.
Okay.
I mean, I do think that's the hallmark of this team is that they're resilient. They weren't resilient a year ago. They were resilient now. They're a lot more mature now than they were a year ago. I mean, you talk to guys inside the program, and they'll tell you that last year, once adversity hit, they kind of folded. This year, adversity seems to make them play better.
This is not picking on
They rally around adversity. They respond to adversity.
This is not picking on one
person. They're a much more...
Go ahead. Predicate there.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just thought about something we didn't mention about the actual game. Jordan Watkins played a few snaps. He went back and caught that punt late. And maybe it's an Ole Miss, like, it's not just an Ole Miss thing. What is it with people not catching punts? Like, Dayton Wade wanted nothing to do with that punt on the touchback. Like, after he muffed the one, that was it. Like, I mean, they really have had a hard time just finding someone to catch the football.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that Jordan Watkins with the bum hand was the best option still, but he obviously was.
Do we think he can catch the football in a... I mean, he warmed up. I mean, for anybody who missed it, he he warmed up completely. I mean, he caught passes, he did everything, he caught punts in that part. Like, all that stuff was completely normal. And then I don't think he had a target. I'll go look in a second.
I don't think he did. I think when he was on the field, he was just used as a blocker.
Yeah. I mean, they obviously had to account for him and whatever. Tyler, thanks for super chat. No, I mean, for all the stuff about Hugh, I've not heard of any extracurricular issues at all. I would not expect that in any way, frankly. I don't think that's a thing. Brian, we can hear you. I got to get you in the screen, but I couldn't hear you. So if you'd like to talk,
okay.
I've asked everybody else. Was there any point where you thought Ole Miss was losing that game tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when they didn't score after the first drive in the first half. I thought that game could get a little weird. So, yeah, there were multiple points. I'd say it took me to the second half, though. At halftime, I thought they were still okay.
Maybe we were all just expecting – like, I think it's more of what I knew about Auburn. And I went, they just can't – if you can do anything, they can't score.
Yeah, they kept rotating the two quarterbacks, and Ole Miss fared pretty well against Ashford on the first drive, which the announcers acted like was the shock of the century that they brought out a different quarterback for the first drive. And then they fared a little better with Thorne, and, I don't know. I just thought they were too inept offensively. I mean, there was a point in this game, I think, when I was looking it up, after three quarters, Ole Miss had like 358 yards of offense to Auburn's 154. Auburn, I think, had like 120-something in the fourth quarter. A little bit of that in quote-unquote garbage time as they went and got that score that was inconsequential to some, maybe consequential to others. But, I thought Ole Miss defense played pretty well in this game to where, like I said, first half I thought they were fine. Second half there was a moment or two, particularly when they couldn't get anything going offensively on those first two drives where I was like, okay, they might be in trouble here. But I was listening to the postgame show a second ago before I hopped on. Like Neil said, pretty resilient. And like last year when things got a little squirrely, they brought out their worst football, and this year they seemed to bring out their best.
Hey, guys, going into another game from the day, I had like this perfect deal of getting to watch the Tennessee media as they were getting screwed by the officials in Tuscaloosa and being baffled by that going on by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, we got some goals from my favorite sports writer today. I mean, he was apoplectic at times, Rucker. I mean, he was apoplectic at times in how Tennessee was getting jobbed in the officiating. I mean, it was cannon stuff today as Bama came back and dominated that second half because they had convinced themselves they were running away with it. It was going to be halftime. They were up 20-7. It was on, and then steamrolled from that point. Neil, did you catch any of that today, or were you too busy watching your football expose it was going on?
I saw a little bit of the first half, and Tennessee was kind of dominating, and they were ahead. And then it went to halftime, and we played Super Mario, and then and then I looked up at one point, and I was like, "Oh, Alabama's ahead by 2 scores. How'd that happen?" So no, I missed the whole screwing of Tennessee portion of the day.
Yeah, you got Tennessee got screwed. We were all right on Missouri. They just hammered South Carolina. I know we're all shocked the guy who kicked the Gatorade bucket and
Missouri's good.
Broke his foot.
I mean Missouri's good, and South Carolina's not.
I took a Wes Rucker hiatus after him demanding that Tennessee have to play a super regional at a higher seeded team. I haven't really seen it since. Neil, you played Super Mario Kart? Was that in a dorm? What happened?
I was at Caroline's apartment. We played at halftime. We switched to Super Mario Kart, and I'm not sure that we ever switched back.
What is your Super Mario Kart person? What is your character in that you go with?
I did Bowser today, and also the green dinosaur guy.
Yoshi.
What's his name?
Yoshi.
Yeah.
You should know your Mario characters. Come on, don't do that. Don't age out going, hey, the green dinosaur thing. That's come on.
I don't know them all either. I sucked at Mario Kart. I would just drop the banana behind people to try to.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, no problem. I actually couldn't name all of them either.
Well, Bowser's like, Bowser is like, he's the bully. When he gets going, he's kind of quick, but he's really slow taking off. It's not the most versatile Mario Kart character. Princess Peach, Toad,
I wasn't
somebody a little more all around game.
Caroline was Princess Peach. I do remember that. I wasn't putting a hell of a lot of thought into who my character was there. I wasn't super focused on getting the win.
What game system were we playing?
It was a Wii.
Okay. That might be my favorite Mario Kart. I spent a lot of hours on a Mario Kart with the Wii.
Yeah.
They might make a good point. Rippy might be too young to know all the Nintendo characters.
No, I'm not too young. I'm just too inept. I stuck to the NCAA football when I was a kid. I wasn't very good at the shooting games of the Mario Kart. I wasn't too young for Mario Kart. I'm not going to act like I'm older than I am. I just was totally inept at it. So I have not put a ton of thought into the Mario Kart Grand Prix, but I appreciate your thought that you put into it. I'll keep that in mind next time I get on the sticks.
Miami, I think, just knocked off Clemson. Is Clemson completely dead as a program at that level?
Yeah, it's over.
Disappointing to our guy Weldon. He texted me and said, Cristobal's done it again. I didn't have that game on, and then I flipped it on in overtime, and they won.
We could do a Twitch thing where we all play some Wii Mario Kart and stream it for you guys. We could pull that off. Get some steering wheels going, see how it goes.
I got a hosting service that can make that happen, so just say the word.
All right. Fair enough. Injury-wise, we're all just kind of watching from the same angle. Nothing was overly obvious from a hurt standpoint, right? That I could tell. I'm getting asked this in the stream a good bit. There's nothing that I noticed like somebody got carried off or something.
Not that I saw.
Okay.
Nah, whatever Pettis' deal was, but he seemed to come back in the game. I did find it fitting that they had so much trouble returning punts. They got a kid with a broken hand to field the last couple punts. That was nice.
Yeah, I kind of hit that. I was surprised at how lack of confidence there was there in that there toward the end. Bentley got banged up, but he came in. He was fine. It's a good point in the stream, by the way. Yes, Dabo will not talk about the portal is a bad thing to Dabo. He refuses. Even though his quarterback has actually found some life there at Oregon State now. So, Dabo to A&M. That would be a fit. Oh, God, that would be a fit. I'd pay for that. So, anyway.
Dabo and Ross? That'd be nice.
Yeah. Neil, your connection gave us a pretty good bit there. I'm kind of impressed because I thought we were getting, as somebody said, 1 frame per second there for the first 15 minutes, but it held out pretty well, so we won't make it do more than it probably has to there.
Okay.
Yeah. Appreciate it, though. Call him up from Mr. McCready. Joined us for a little while. We will talk to him again on Monday. Yeah, I did not see that's a good point. I didn't see Pegues come back in. Somebody answer me there. Did he or did he not? Walker asking. I'm not sure. You know, Rippy?
No, there was too much going on with that game, particularly towards the end. I won't call it deadline writing, but that's the first time I've ever written something in the last 3 years where there was some sort of remote posting time. So I was a little preoccupied with that. That was a little unnerving. You asked me to do the rapid reaction. Who knows how the hell that went? First time in quite a while where I've had to post something with any sort of timeliness. So I was last 6-7 minutes, I was pretty preoccupied with that. So I did not lift my head up a ton.
What was Pegues did come back in, Jalen said. I did not see that, but yeah, he says so. What were the main takeaways? What'd you write?
I think I did 3 main takeaways. They probably weren't that well thought out, but I thought, Dart played a pretty horrendous first half. I thought he cost them really first 38 minutes or so. It's the first half and the first 2 drives of the second half where I thought he kind of cost them points. The interception was unfortunate in how it bounced, but if you put that on the money to Franklin, they're kind of in business there, probably get points. And if he puts the right ball there onto Bentley early in the third quarter, they most definitely get points because at worst, I think my guy Caden Davis could have handled a 40-something or 30-something yarder there, but really rebounded to play a pretty awesome final 25-ish minutes of this game. they hadn't done anything in the first half, and he finishes the last game like 4 of 6 or 5 of 7, something like that. And 3 of them in a row to Trey Harris in that drive that gave them the lead. I've wrote about the defense really not allowing the game to get weird despite the offense not playing very well. And then, I mean, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, honestly, at this point, but just talked about the team's overall resiliency because, like I think I heard Neil say it earlier last year, when things got close, they kind of shrunk, and this year they seemed to play their best football. I mean, it was 14-14, and Auburn had the football there with about 9 minutes to go in the third quarter, and it was like, oh, man, how is this going to go? And they made a great defensive stop. Ole Miss put together a 9-play, 90-yard drive, 85-yard drive straight down the field, followed it up with the 6-play, 68-yard drive, or maybe 9-play, 68-yard drive. Really,
9-play.
Yeah, stick 2 swords in and cut the head off, to use a movie phrase there, and put the game out of reach. I'm not sure that would have happened a year ago. Those are my 3 main takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, people talking about Dart in the stream, he played really well considering that start, because you could easily on the road like that, in a game that's close, get bogged down, let it get to you mentally, and sort of freeze up a little bit. And we've seen players do that a ton, whether it be Auburn or other difficult environments. Ole Miss has had that happen to a lot of quarterbacks. Instead, he's found reasons and ways to get down and score. I mean, Ole Miss scores 4 touchdowns. He accounted in some way for 3 of them. He gets the touchdown pass to Sakari Franklin on a great play call there in the first half, and then he runs one in. He runs another one in later, and that I wrote about it. That drive, they actually kind of get the break there, because on the drive to take the lead, that's when Judkins fumbled and the ball hit the ground and bounced right back up to him to start the drive. If that thing goes anywhere else, it's at minimum second and way long, or Auburn's got the ball right there. I mean, Dart played really good football today without his best weapon. I mean, again, it wasn't perfect. It was his worst half of the year, but Ole Miss has one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I just feel like everybody's kind of, and maybe everybody's the wrong word, because I'm being way hyperbolic there. Most people are defenders of Jackson Dart, but the criticism you see, it just comes out so fast. Nobody's perfect. Everything's kind of weird here. I just feel like it's such a quick hook from some people toward him. It's not overly flashy, but dude's a winner. I mean, he's found a way to just win football games at this point.
And you do have to evaluate it in its totality. I don't think you can, because of the way he played in the final, like we said, 25, 30 minutes, whatever you want to call it, in the second half, can just cast away that first half. Ole Miss, I think, had a couple of chances to create separation, and whether it's all on Dart or not all on Dart, he certainly contributed to the fact that they couldn't pull away in the first half. So it's kind of how do you evaluate and just take into reason, I guess, the first half versus the second half. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I think, like you mentioned, Ole Miss does have a winner on their football team at quarterback, but it's certainly an imperfect product, and it's very fascinating kind of in the post Matt Corral era trying to evaluate Dart, because he does have stretches where it's like, man, this doesn't look very good. And then all of a sudden, when the game gets really tight and they need it, more times than not, he's certainly prevailed. And so at the end of the day, I guess you really do have to give him credit for that, but you also kind of have to take the good with the bad. It's a very complicated existence for Jackson Dart at Ole Miss at this point.
Ole Miss salted the game away in the fourth quarter. They ran 14 plays, 13 run plays there in the fourth quarter. Only one pass that went for 36 yards on that throw. Dart, again, 10 of 17, 202, a touchdown, interception, 59% completion percentage. Charlie Pollock throwing his pick on the fire call on the dropped hold there on that field goal attempt. Because of that, his quarterback rating minus 200 there for the former Nevada kicker. Trey Harris, again, 4 catches, 102. He had 8 targets. Priestcorn, 2 catches, 63 yards, 2 targets. Sakari Franklin gets his first touchdown as a Rebel, 2 catches, 15 yards. Dayton Wade, 1 catch, 12 yards, 1 target there for him. And then Bentley had 1 catch, 10 yards out of 2 targets for the running back. Judkins going 21 for 124, 1 touchdown. Bentley 17 of 52, had a long of 12, only averaged 3.1 overall. And then Dart 14 carries, 44 yards, averaging 2.9 or 3.1. The long of 29 there on that really impressive touchdown run. Fraser Messine, he has a long of 54, but only averages 38.6 on his 5 punts, 2 inside the 20, 1 for over 50, and then that I guess that 12-yard shank or whatever it was, greatly reducing his average there. And then Jean-Baptiste, 7 total tackles, Cedric Johnson 5, Perkins 5, Ukwu 5, and then on down the list from there. Ole Miss again dominating yardage, time of possession, and much more. 425 to 275 on a total yardage for the Rebels. Neither team technically credited with the drop, but I bet Pro Football Focus does something different there. There's no way that's true. I think a couple balls were dropped. So, I'll be curious to see what Pro Football Focus says about that as we get here tomorrow and pull snap counts and different things. So I guess the last couple takeaways, Brian, what'd you do? What'd you think? Anything we hadn't really mentioned? I mean, Ole Miss gets the win over Freeze. One thing here, I know Jimbo's in 2 weeks, but getting that out of the way and getting the former coach thing out of the way, getting the team that Lane talked to last fall and all that kind of stuff coming out of the bye week, that was 2 weeks of a lot of crap. And when you get to 6 wins and you get the win on the Plains, I think I wrote in my column, you kind of get to move past the histrionics in so many ways and just sort of play football again. I think that's really good for this team moving forward with Vanderbilt this week, is to just kind of have a really normal work week, beat Vanderbilt, and then gear up for 2 games that are going to absolutely determine what the tenor of the season looks like. I mean, you and I talked about it last time we had a postgame show that with the current record and situation, anything less than 9-3, 10-2, frankly, is a disappointment. That's what they're still on pace for. They got through one of these really, really difficult things at this point with Auburn, and they get to just sort of take a breath going into the A&M game where they will be favored. And then, look, without Brock Bowers, again, we'll get to that. Brian Jeffrey joining on the Campbell Clinic hotline. We're going to talk to some Campbell Clinic guys probably about Brock Bowers, his tightrope surgery, what that means for him and some other injury stuff when Georgia gets here close. Remember, they are now in Oxford there with Campbell Clinic. But just in general, I think that Ole Miss gets, with the way the schedule works out, is really good for them to sort of play, get through a game, and then get ready for that 2-game stretch. It's really going to dictate things and put them in, potentially rarefied air if they could really get hot.
Yeah, it was like a bye week, but at the same time, it felt like one more hurdle before an actual reprieve, even though you do have a game against Vanderbilt next week, barring something shocking. And, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, you really kind of have 1 week to, I don't know if you call it get right, but a game you should win to really get prepared for back-to-back games that is going to shape the course of really the whole season, but particularly the second half of the season. And, I don't know, this felt like a game where you needed to go there and survive, and I feel like Ole Miss did just that. You saw a couple of different things that, like, if things go awry, you might get an understanding of where this team will go. Like, you had Pettis go down there, and he came back in the game, but I thought it was interesting that they immediately moved Kern to right tackle, and then they brought Jaden Williams into left tackle, and they'd been kind of doing that weird substitution thing a lot of times during in the red zone where they bring Jaden Williams in at left tackle and take Kern off the field. I just thought it was fascinating. Their immediate move was like, hey, Kern, go to right, Williams do that. I don't know if that means anything at all, but it was a little bit of an interesting light into their offensive line shuffle. And then I'll be very interested to see the snap counts tomorrow, but it didn't feel like they did we've talked about it for like 5-6 weeks now of like, hey, why are they doing this kind of weird minor rotation on the offensive line? It felt like they did less of that tonight. I saw a little bit of Reese McIntyre at center in place of Caleb Warren. Maybe there was a drive there where it looked like Acker went in for James, but there wasn't a lot of rotation at the tackles like you'd seen in previous games, which, again, I don't know if that means anything. I thought it was fascinating early in the game. Ole Miss kind of looked like 2021 Ole Miss, and they were having such success running the football in Auburn on the edges where they would get in a 3rd and long, and they were not bashful about running the football at all because they felt like they could pick most, if not all of it up. You had Judkins pick up the 3rd and 20 or whatever the hell it was, and another long 3rd down there early in the game. And then they kind of got stuck in the mud running the football, but there were flashes of like this running offense being as explosive like it looked a year ago, which I thought was interesting, if nothing else.
Yeah, because it was mentioned in the stream a second ago, they hadn't talked about the play calling. The play calling looked really bad in the middle. It was really bogged down. It was a lot of just sort of ISO runs. They didn't get anything they didn't get anything downfield in the passing game. And it just felt like Harris was being bracketed to some extent. He wasn't open. And without Watkins in there as a viable option, it was doing a lot of the same things as when Harris wasn't in the game. Because, look, Franklin got open on the touchdown, but they're still not feeding him anyway. There's not separation or trust. I haven't seen an all 22 to tell you exactly what's going on there, but something's not right with him. It's still from a standpoint of Dart looking toward him routinely or consistently in the passing game. They simply just don't have that thing that opens up the field when everybody's not healthy. And that's one thing here. I think as time goes on, that'll be another reason to think, hey, they did a really good job in that second half is they found ways to score and put together those back-to-back drives without Jordan Watkins. And for whatever reason, whatever you want to call it, they're not a team that is peak efficiency unless both wide receivers are healthy.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of that, they also deserve some credit to being able to survive. I think some of what happened tonight or what could have happened tonight would bring you back to 2021. You remember when Drummond got hurt early in that game, 21 at Auburn? And I know I've used this example a couple of times, but I remember that night where Drummond gets hurt, and then it was like, okay, it's Ja'Cour Pearson, and then I have to go look up whoever the hell is out there. Like it's one of the Jackson, not related, but Jackson last names that stuck around for a while, and it felt really dire. Whereas they didn't have Watkins tonight in really any functional capacity as a wide receiver. But for the most part, we're still fine. It wasn't perfect. They got really bogged down, like you mentioned, in the middle parts of the game, but you still had a Prescorn there or the availability of Zachary Franklin to make a catch. And you still had Harris out there where it felt in 2 years ago or even sometimes last year, even there wasn't a particular game that stuck out, that you lose one guy and all of a sudden your receiving core becomes almost obsolete. It didn't feel that way. It wasn't completely how are they going to field a pass, 10, 15 yards down the field. They still had enough there, albeit not being perfect. I don't know if that has anything to do with Franklin just not being healthy, Prescorn being in just his third game back, I guess. This is actually his fourth game back. But you get my point. They still have enough there to be sufficient even if a guy goes down.
Prescorn has done a ton, too, from a run game standpoint to open up some edges, to set some edges and do a lot for them. They've been really good with him. That's been different prior to him coming back from injury there. I mean, he changes the game, and look, his snap counts are really high. They're playing him a ton of reps. It's pretty much any time there's a tight end in the game. At this point, he's in there, but he gets the big pass from Dart down the right sideline when Dart put it the only place it ever could have been to be caught. And the irony there was that every wide receiver was open because I think Dart actually missed something to the middle of the field that would have been a much longer gain. But they did hit Prescorn down the slot. Yeah, Hudson Wolf back healthy this week, so at least gives another option there at tight end. I see Sammy says that in the stream. That is correct as well. But I don't know. It's been a fun week. But I am in some ways kind of glad we can go ahead and move on from Freeze, let him see if he can get to bowl eligibility or what this thing looks like, and just kind of watch that show from afar now with popcorn.
Was the week, though, a letdown from the storyline? I mean, I remember we talked about it from the offseason of like, oh, my God, wait till that Auburn week after the bye week. It was kind of quiet. Like, there wasn't actually a ton of fodder to, dissect. Like, they both kind of played.
Nobody fanned the Flames.
Yes, exactly.
And Auburn had been so bad.
And I didn't think they were a ton better tonight. I thought they got a couple lucky breaks and then a couple of mistakes induced by Ole Miss to make that game as competitive as it was for a while. Maybe that's why. Maybe old Reverend Hugh just didn't believe he had the team to do it. I thought that broadcast was a masterclass in Hugh Freeze just welcoming a home broadcaster crew. They had him holding up his grandchild like she was Simba in The Lion King. And then also talking about how he reinvented his practice schedule and did actually like a full fast-paced practice on Friday, which like apparently Kiffin and every other program does now. He calls it Fast Friday, but in Reverend Hughes' mind, he actually invented that concept this week. So congrats to him for founding that. I thought that was a masterclass in Hugh Freeze television propaganda. That was very enjoyable to consume.
Yeah, just it said there, Bill in the stream says proud of the team tonight. Oh, look, almost did a hell of a job tonight because you get behind the 8 ball and you get in that situation with being 14-14. Yeah, I think Bentley's okay Saturday. He seemed to be fine there at the end of the game. You're 14-14. That stadium has a reputation for a reason. The whole touchdown Auburn Jesus stuff for a reason. I mean, squirrely stuff starts happening once things tighten up there in that second half, and Ole Miss just found another gear that Auburn didn't have and didn't continue to make the same mistakes and feel sorry for themselves and get up. And that's why we keep talking about the different levels of adversity they've overcome this year. And I think LSU is its own animal. But outside of that, this was as impressive or more impressive as any of them. Just the way that they were able to get there and go, nope, We're going to do back-to-back drives. We're going to score. We're going to do it in different ways, and we're going to put you away. And that's it right there. And we're the better team. Ole Miss is more talented. They're more efficient. They execute better than Auburn at this point from a program standpoint. I mean, it's fairly amazing just as far as, I think that it's a credit to Lane, and this is a national thing, but I think it's local too, is everybody sort of expects Ole Miss to win a lot of games now. We talked about that last time. But I think it plays into Auburn has been such a difficult place to play for Ole Miss. Again, they had never won a night game. They were 0-9 coming into the game at night at Jordan-Hare. They hadn't beaten Auburn back-to-back in 71 years or whatever it was. Lane's been repeating throughout the week and repeated again in the postgame with the ESPN reporter to tonight. All those different things. We've watched Ole Miss lose so many games at Auburn in weird ways, in ways they shouldn't have done it, in ways where they simply did not play very well down the stretch, or they let Auburn get a break, or something happened. Nothing happened tonight except they were the better team and they put the thing away. And I think that is probably a level of credit that we need to continue to talk about for a few days, and something that sticks out more than anything else is they really did. I mean, they handled that as well as anybody outside of Georgia has handled all season, and frankly, maybe better than Georgia did when they played them down there.
Agreed. And they survived and they got out of there. Again, it's not a place that Ole Miss has had a whole hell of a lot of success at, like you mentioned, particularly at night. And there were those weird Auburn Jesus moments. I mean, Joe Tessitore was just chomping at the bit to bring that up every single time it possibly happened. But, I mean, at the end of the day, Auburn just did not have the horses offensively to even contend for that. But credit for the Ole Miss defense for not making mistakes to allow it to happen despite that.
I saw Tessitore getting beat up, and I didn't think he was particularly good tonight. But I thought what happened early was I think if you put a truth serum on him, he was expecting an Ole Miss blowout. So it was a lot of like Auburn prop up early while it still was a game in his mind. And then as it kind of played out, it felt uneven because when Auburn, he went on those couple early runs, he was like, so whatever. And it was all so pro Auburn and talking about, hey, this place is going to make it complicated no matter what. It's making it really, really complicated. You know what I mean? And then it created an uneven, broadcast as time went on. CJ Rebs went out. They have a high chance of making playoffs. Yeah, I think an 11-1 Ole Miss team has a chance to make the playoffs. Sure, got a lot of. You have very little chance of winning the West because Bama's not losing twice the rest of the way. But sure, yeah, I think that I think when all is said and done, an 11-1 team would have a chance. We're grading this national landscape on October 21st. There's still a month left for teams to lose and beat up each other. And look, Ole Miss has 2 very difficult games left. I mean, A&M is not going to be a cakewalk, and then at Georgia is its own beast that we're all aware of, despite Brock Bowers being out. But no, I don't hate that storyline. I mean, it's a storyline until Ole Miss loses the second time. Every time they win a game and have another win on the docket, I mean, they are 5 wins away from a chance at the playoff. That's it. They win Vanderbilt 4 games, to A&M 3 games, and you just keep doing it down the list.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see kind of the chaos that turns out. I do think Ole Miss's chances at winning the West, even if they do win out, probably died today. I don't really see Alabama losing twice. I mean, the best hopes are what? LSU and at Kentucky, and then maybe hoping the game at Jordan-Hare gets weird.
Matchup-wise, nah.
Exactly. I can't see how that happens at all. But again, you get to 11-1. It's a far cry away because you still got 5 games left, but you definitely have a shot. Last Tessitore criticism, I'd get that guy a phonetic pronunciation thing. I love the Jean Baptiste, and I love the Mazin for Fraser Mazine. Maybe he could blame the Shank on that, but can you get the announcers a phonetic guide? That was pretty tough.
Yeah, Mitchell says, y'all stop with the 11-1 talk until after Georgia, please. We don't play.
Yeah, sure.
We have no impact, so...
if I have an impact, I'd like to know. I'd actually like to know what my impact was so I can manipulate that to my own advantage.
Yeah, look, I don't think Ole Miss is beating Georgia. I would predict 10-2 at this point. I think Ole Miss beats A&M. I think Ole Miss beats Mississippi State. I think Ole Miss beats, obviously, ULM and Vanderbilt. I think they're 10-2. I mean, I would not predict they win over Georgia. I'm just simply saying that Georgia is more gettable than they were 2 weeks ago, and they're more gettable than they were last year or the year before. And sure, Ole Miss can still go 9-3, and most of you would have taken 9-3 in a heartbeat going into the season. Most of you would have taken 8-4, frankly, and that's a guarantee at this point. But No, I'm 10-2, and I think they have a chance to scare Georgia, make it a 4-quarter game, and just see what happens. So that's not predicting a win, but to act like Georgia is unbeatable at this point would also be a fool's errand.
Not to make it into another big picture thing, but you brought it up last week or the week before last when we did this post game thing. Does 10-2 or 9-3 or 10-2 versus 9-3 change the future of the quarterback thing with Jackson Dart? I don't know what's going to happen next year, but at the end of the day, I know we talked about it a little bit last time. Like if they go 10-2 with Jackson Dart at quarterback, why in the world would you not bring him back?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss would be set up to be a top 10 team in the preseason, be a playoff contender from the jump, and to the best of our knowledge, has a pretty good schedule for that next season. Again, you're missing Alabama. You're doing several things from a schedule standpoint that make a ton of sense. I mean, that they've got a good schedule for next year. I mean, not to look ahead to 2024 too much, but no, I think that's very much a doable thing with Jackson coming back, being a third-year starter. Probably a frustrating thing for Walker Howard, but I mean that the whole time that was known as a possibility. My point in all that being is between NIL and opportunity and team success, it's kind of like Kiffin's Venn diagram of like where he would go versus places that would take him. Jackson Dart, there's no way Dart would leave for somewhere that was a better opportunity and a better situation. Does that make sense? Like, if something happened where Dart's not the quarterback next year, it's because something went off rails in a way that is not on field in any way. Because, yeah, I mean, Jackson Dart, face of the program going into year 3 with Lane Kiffin, and you're a playoff contender. That's what next year would be.
The family started getting some TV time tonight. I've been to a couple of games in person. Is that a first-time thing, or has that been a thing? I was telling a couple of my friends while we were watching the game, the younger brother, legendary named Diesel Dart. That's just absolutely incredible. The Ole Miss should offer him on the spot. I don't even know if he plays football or quarterback, but they should offer him based off that. Was that a first-time thing? That was the first time I'd seen Brandon Dart and the crew on TV this year.
You got Brandon and the crew on TV, and you got pictures of the antelope they killed last week.
Love that. They missed the one with the big cat. The big cat would have been the one to stick on the TV screen. They really screwed that up.
Yeah. Also, good point in the stream that Georgia game in the middle of a really interesting stretch for Georgia. Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee are the 4 games around that time of the year there at that point. So,
and no Bowers for at least 3 of the 4 years. Probably all of them.
Probably out for the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Georgia goes 12-0. I think somebody gets them.
It's a matter of Ole Miss or Tennessee. It feels like, honestly.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, I really do. I don't think Georgia's 12-0. I think it's an 11-1 Georgia against an 11-1 Alabama in the SEC championship game, and I think that Ole Miss at least has a chance to get into that same territory. We'll see. Again, gettable I think is the word for Georgia. Somebody says Dart is like a blend of Chad Kelly and Matt Corral. Some truth there. Got some gamer components to him. Doesn't throw the deep ball as well as either one of them, but he's a hell of a competitor. I mean, he's as much of a competitor as either one of those guys. He just finds ways to win games. So I don't know. It's pretty fascinating, but again, out for the regular season on Bowers appears to be the word that everybody is saying. I think that's probably correct at this point. So that's where it stands. But anyway, all right. Ole Miss 28, Auburn 21 today from Jordan-Hare Stadium. Again, tons of coverage going on at rebelgrove.com. Got 3 stories up. I'll find some Lane video. We'll get more to you. And then the week ahead, Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. So the Rebels in great shape to be 7-1 when A&M comes to town. What's going to be a veritable shit show zoo that weekend in Oxford in 2 weeks after Ole Miss knocks off Vanderbilt. So we'll all get ready for that. Hey, you guys were awesome tonight. Really, really appreciate you. All the likes, all the views, and everything else. Let's keep it up. Keep going. Thanks to Neil, Jeffrey, and Brian, and we'll talk to you again very soon.